G'day everyone, I am the man called Kemosabe, the man with a plan from the land down under, and this is my review of Terralympus Volume 2, written by Stephen K. with art by Randall. As usual, I'll take a look at the cover, the first port of call when it comes to comic book appreciation, then look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of this comic. You want the cliff notes? Have you read Terralympus Volume 1? Then you know Stephen Vaughn and the rest of the team did a great job. In Volume 2, the team tightens up any small stumbles they had and deliver a product that is of an even higher quality, a product that is even more professional to backers. All that was good is better, and any missteps have been corrected. This is a quality book, and Stephen and Vaughn are building the foundation of a long-running, significant franchise. The cover captures a moment within the book, Mia floating through space towards some ubiquitous technological satellite, debris and space rocks floating around her. The limited colour palette keeps the whole image looking cool, dark and mysterious, but the values of the colours mean Mia almost vanishes into the background. I think a higher contrast colour scheme would have worked better here, particularly when considering how the book would look on the shelf at a comic book store. The title, along with its white border, shares colours from the cover and so doesn't stand out very well. If the team was after a subdued, chilled out cover, they've achieved it, but if they wanted something that would stand out on the shelf, I think they missed the mark a little. I think I would have had the background stark black, pitch black, to contrast with the light-hued technology of Mia's suit and the satellite. We get a very quick recap to remind returning viewers of where the story left off. Volume 2 was sold individually and in a 2-pack, so for the new readers this wasn't necessary, but it's handy for returning readers, even though the gap between Terralympus Volume 1 and 2 was just a year through Indiegogo, and the Terralympus team have proved to be a reliable group that produces quality products on a respectable time frame. This book begins with Mia being discovered after having stowed away on the ship. She lies and says she dozed off while the vehicle was being loaded, and the captain tells her he'll be reporting her to her superior. Hannah, ironically, is looking jealously at the ship as it departs. Last issue we found out Hannah wanted to be on the ships, but Mia had no interest in that role. Now they are role reversed, with Hannah trapped on a space station and Mia travelling into distant space. Hannah gets an alert that there is a malfunction in the oxygen room, and she immediately responds. This is where writer Stephen K.'s engineering background comes into play. The characters discuss the particulars of growing plants in space and the effect that stellar phenomena plays on that process. Hannah sets about solving the technical issue in the oxygen room while Mia faces another one in space. While the pilot has managed to maneuver the craft as close as possible to the abandoned satellite, the object of their mission, it's an older model that needs a manual interface, meaning someone will have to go out into space and interact with it. Despite the captain's misgivings, Mia is selected for the job, being the only one familiar with the ins and outs of this type of technology. Back on the space station, Stefan is still searching for Mia, but she's obviously nowhere to be found. He begins to suspect exactly how Mia managed to escape. Back on the ship, Mia spacewalks out to the satellite and discovers it's booby-trapped, a 2-stage explosive response to being tampered with. This leads to a tense scene where the captain is yelling for Mia to return to the ship and abandon the mission as she races to disarm the explosives. Mia manages to delay the primary explosive but is caught in the blast of the second detonation and is left adrift in space, and the readers are unsure as to her fate. Back on the space station, Stefan, the commander, and several admin-looking types discuss the progress of Project Terra. It appears they've either been repairing the Earth or terraforming a new planet in secrecy for mankind to re-inhabit. They mention the product is ahead of schedule and has been decades in the making, having been started before anybody in the room was even born. This is another nice little hard sci-fi nod. Terraforming a planet should conceivably take decades, centuries, or even millennia. There's no shortcuts in this world. In its own way, it's as harsh, mean, and stark as any medieval fantasy. Back in the oxygen room, Hannah manages to fix the problem and admits that it was her first real engineering job, and that she wasn't sure it would work. She points out some inconsistencies in the data entry from the sector, and the manager becomes very agitated and angry and kicks Hannah out. This builds on something Mia discovered last issue, where there are fluctuations in data entry in another sector. Writer Stephen K. is playing the long game, a slow burn build-up to another bit of intrigue, couched in real-world adjacent technologies and engineering. Mia wakes in space to learn she's been unconscious for a while and has only a few minutes to extract data from the satellite before it explodes. She manages to get the information and return to the ship just in time to brace for explosion. Mia returns to the craft and sets about unpacking and recovering the data. She discovers the data stream is being broadcast from Terralympus itself, the very place that sent the expeditionary craft out in the first place. We cut to a clandestine space station, known only by its coordinates. They were receiving the data stream which, since Mia's interference caused the explosion, has stopped. Seeing this as an attack, the commander of the station orders the deadly Lieutenant Simi to capture, or if necessary, kill, the hostile element responsible for the destruction of the satellite. Stephen K. once again leaves the story to end on a significant cliffhanger, setting up expectations of the following issue. Like I said before, everything the Terralympus team did well, they're doing even better. The dialogue is realistic and sounds true for a hard sci-fi story. Character personalities shine through, and as readers are able to quickly form their own ideas about them. The captain, for example, is stern and authoritarian, immediately promising to follow procedure and report Mia for stowing away. But only a page or two later he is yelling for her to take action to save her own life. He is clearly an honourable man who feels responsible for the lives of everyone on his ship, even the stowaway that he has no real or legal obligation to help or protect. While mad at her for disobeying a direct order, he recognises that she is the best suited for the tech-based jobs, and gives her space to decode the data and so further the mission on the most effective way possible. The story hits all the right beats, moving at a steady clip. Major characters are checked in on at least once each, with their agendas and arcs moving forward along the way. Nothing is static or stationary. Stephen K. wastes no pages, panels or lines, making sure the story is told cleanly and economically. Married with Von Randall's hard-edged, junky but futuristic line work, and you get a sparse, lean story that never slows down, but it doesn't come at you with a breakneck pace. While I'm not a fan of the occasional use of 3D backgrounds, it's not wholly out of place in a book like this where the future environments are likely 3D printed or otherwise mass manufactured. We get quick sketches of the characters that are effective at relaying the desired information in a few panels, but I'd like to see more depth on some of the characters. For most characters of the story, I think this will come with time. We're only 2 issues in on what I'm told will be a story of significant length, so long-form storytelling is the order of the day. I'm still not convinced there's not something sinister about Hannah, and while Stefan seemed ready to kill to protect his secrets, I still can't see him wholly as a bad guy either. This is quality writing, but it highlights what I think to be the weaker character, Mia. She suffers from the problem many main characters seem saddled with, one I've struggled to overcome with in the past with my own writing, that she is kind of blandly competent and likeable by virtue of not being unlikable. Stefan is a techhead willing to kill to protect his secrets. He's being blackmailed or threatened by shadowy factions, and his every action is suspect. The captain of the ship is inflexible and stern, strictly by the rules, but not so inflexible that he hinders the mission over a sense of pride or procedure. Hannah is kind of jealous and naive, and the thing she wants is just out of her reach. In fact, the person who doesn't want what she wants got what she wanted. Each of these are interesting character sketches. Mia, on the other hand, is pretty, a good fighter, good enough with tech to disarm a bomb while under stress, plucky and brave, and everyone kind of likes her. It's harder to make a verbal character sketch of Mia, but this could be Stephen K. constructing a kind of everyman character that a wider range of people can use to self-insert into the story. Either way, I believe Stephen K. is a strong enough writer to get Mia into a place where she shines as the main character. Terralympus Volume 2 is definitely another foray into a hard sci-fi setting, but not to the extent that the reader disengages or is pulled out of the story, overburdened with particulars and formula. Stephen K. uses just enough real-world ideas and applications to convince the reader that everything in the story is eminently doable, maybe even just over the horizon of our collective future. Terralympus is the sort of story Netflix should be targeting: smart, slow-burn storytelling with strong characters and a near-future backdrop within which stories that reflect the human condition can be told. Von Randall's art is so good, so perfectly suited to the black and white page it evokes the very real, practical technology of the future. But it's a worn future, one that has been used and reused, where materials are recycled and repairs are a fact of life. This is no Elysium, no Death Star. Terralympus would be more at home as a place for the Serenity to dock, or as a station in the Expanse. It would be interesting to see what influences the writer and the artist list for their work on this title. Stephen, cover your ears. Von, when you're done working on this series, I have a project for you. 6 issues, suits your style perfectly. We'll talk later. Each issue of Terralympus clocks in at over 50 pages and is a fantastic value for money. Both campaigns had free shipping within Australia, and Stephen's modest crowdfunding goal speaks to a measured and calculated campaign, one run efficiently and guaranteed to deliver. Terralympus has been fulfilled twice now, and with a third campaign scheduled for later this year, you know you are safe supporting this project. I said in my last review of Terralympus that I'm in this series for the long haul, for as many issues as Stephen and Von have planned. That hasn't changed. When the campaign for Terralympus Volume 3 launches, I'll be a day one backer.